Hi everybody. I have questions to answer that I'm gonna post next week because it's Friday and I'm feeling productive, so I'm gonna get this done. Okay, all right, get it done. Work smart, not hard. Work when you have the energy to. Save the photos, and then when you don't have the energy to, it'll be okay because you got a bunch done when you did. Okay. Legislature Part 3, Legislature reading. I'm trying to get comfortable. Legislature reading Part 3. That is what we are on. Maybe I'll turn this light up a little. Is that better? Oh yeah, that's better. Okay. Alright guys. Question one was about who writes bills. So I'm gonna tell you I'm gonna talk longer than y'all probably want me to about these bills just because, or about this section, just because I think there's details that we need to get into. So who writes bills? Not Congress, men and women and folks, not them. They very rarely actually write the content. They are acting as a representative, so I think generally it's better off for all of us if they are not writing the content, but they are approving it according to what the expectations are of their constituents, so they're representing their people properly in order to approve it. We want experts to be writing this kind of content. We want the proper language to be used, and society has gotten so what is the word we used to use for it last year? It's gotten so niche, like it's gotten so specific. For example, like I don't know how to grow carrots, but I eat them all the time because I teach so that I can buy carrot. Like people go into their specific expertise, and expertises are getting more and more detailed. So we might as well have someone who has the expertise be able to write these laws. So we have staffers that are hired with expertise about specific subjects. So if you are a congressperson, you are going to want to hire staffers that have a lot of knowledge in housing in urban and rural settings, have a lot of knowledge in education, urban and rural, healthcare, urban and rural. You want to have all of that as your base. I think Obama said it very well. He said something along the lines of, it's not about what you know, it's about who you surround yourself with. Or maybe Obama was quoting someone else. Not sure. So we have staffers with expertise. Then we have sketchy side to that, lobbyists. I understand there might be some lobbyists that lobby for things that are in my favor, but I hate the concept of lobbyist. But then again, the difference between a staffer and a lobbyist might be a very fine line. Lobbyists are hired in order to push a specific agenda by a specific political group. One of the lobbying groups that I know really, really well, actually two of them would be Israeli lobbying groups that try to push to ensure that there are laws passed in the United States that prioritize trade with Israel, that do not get into the dirty business of what's going on between the UN, Israel, and Palestine, or that the US does get involved, but it's in a positive light for Israel. So there are those lobbyists. There are also NRA lobbyists who are lobbying for continued access and lack of restriction on gun laws. NRA lobbyists, there are education lobbyists as well. It's just usually, I don't know, what is the difference between someone advocating for something that they love and care about and somebody being a lobbyist? It's a very fine line, but we have to kind of pay attention to that. White House liaisons, we saw a lot of White House liaisons in the Trump presidency pushing bills, but a lot of those bills came from, I'm not going to say like underground, but not very well-known groups that were trying to push their agenda and offered support for the Trump presidency and whatever agenda he had, as long as like certain check boxes were checked off for their own personal agenda, which is usually how it works, which we'll get into later. And then we have other professionals or outside professionals who are referenced when creating a bill or a creation of some sort that might go into a bill. Okay. Also, I want to say we occasionally see community groups as well that come forward. For example, there are a lot of bills being proposed to try to, I don't know how, to protect, oh, this is an interesting one. There are bills being passed protecting women from sexually explicit content that they've shared with a specific partner being shared with other people or posted in a public forum. People who are trying to get that passed, are they staffers? Maybe. Are they lobbyists? I don't think so. They're for sure not White House liaisons. And a lot of them aren't professionals. They are people who have experienced these negative things, and they are trying to ensure that that doesn't happen to somebody else by pushing for this to happen. So they contact their representatives, push on their representatives, and then say like, this is what a bill would look like if you were to pass it forward. They probably enlist professional help. There's also ones against surrounding violence against women, specifically in Native communities. I see that more popular in Canada though than the United States, but I want to say there are also community groups that are writing bills. Wow, that took 6 minutes. That was a long time. This will go quicker. Germane and non-germane. Germane means directly related to topics of the bill. Non-germane means this is a rider. This is something that is being attached to a bill that maybe doesn't make sense. Sometimes this happens in the community's benefit. A lot of the time it does not happen in the community's benefit. So a bill that is being passed about about not sharing like explicit or nude photographs of someone and that being considered like a sexual crime. Maybe they are tacking on something to limit OnlyFans. I don't know if that would be non-germane or germane. That's like a gray area between those, but it wasn't adhering to the original intentions of why the bill was being passed. So that's interesting. I'm trying to think of another one. There's one about pre-K programs as well, and funding for pre-K programs that I read about that was really good. But what you need to know is if something is germane, it's related to the topic of the bill directly, and if it is non-germane, it is a tag-on. If it is a tag-on, it is probably a concession. For example, if I wanted to get a bill passed and I knew I needed the Black Caucus to be able to do it, the Black Caucus said, we will pass your bill if you slip in this sentence about something that we have been trying to get passed for a long time. And I say, okay, I can slip that sentence in, that's fine, we got it. So we slip the sentence in and I get all the votes from the Black Caucus. That'd be cool. But it's sneaky, I think, unless it's explicitly, like, I don't know, I think people think that this is a cut and dry process when we see these things being passed or not passed, and it's much more intertwined and dramatic and messy than we all think. Okay, omnibus. An omnibus is anything that's, if you ever hear the term package, it's an omnibus. That means the COVID relief package is an omnibus. It's all encompassing. It has a bunch of random stuff, which is why we end up getting upset later. And we're like, why did all this money that was given to Chicago for COVID relief, why did 65% of it go to the police department? When obviously we have a lot of issues with the police department and there's a big movement to defund the police department, so why do they get all this money? I don't know. That is what happens with omnibus packages. You don't even have to play the germane, non-germane deal because omnibus is so encompassing that you can't claim something as non-germane. Okay, omnibus is done. Congress. Oh, do we trust Congress with the budget? I think Congress, obviously, from what I said earlier, is very shady when it comes to the budget. I think people are shifting around a lot of money in order to garner votes that do benefit their constituents, but I don't know if the compromise is worth the minor benefit that the constituents are receiving. And that is sad. Is there a way to limit this, to look at log rolling and say you can't do this? I mean, you can try. They're still going to go meet for a dinner outside of the House floor or the Senate floor and have discussions about what concessions need to be made for someone to be able to support a bill. It's still going to happen. It seems like human nature to a certain extent. Okay, let's see. Oh, yeah. So I kind of just put together 4 and 5. Provide an example in your response about budgeting. There's a large issue also that people have been talking about for a long time about how Congress can give itself a pay raise, like they set their own pay, and how a separate entity should probably be handling that, but they're not. So, shady. Congress is not to be particularly trusted with money, but how can you trust that large of a bureaucracy with that much money? I'm not sure. I think, not to sound like a libertarian, but government is just really large and it creates a lot of space for errors and mistakes and shady things to happen, like embezzlement. We talked about log rolling. Should we try to monitor or limit it? It'd be cool if we could, I think. Like, it would more adhere to our democratic and Republican values. But doubt it is going to happen. Doubt it. What is the purpose of the CBO, the Congressional Budget Office? So this is interesting. So we have the CBO and the OMB. The OMB is the executive branch budgeting. The CBO is the legislative branch budgeting. They are supposed to be checks and balancing each other. And I'm sure they do to a certain extent, but also if the CBO is filled with Democrats and the executive office is held by a Democratic president, I don't know how much checks and balances are going on. They have the same agenda. Why would they check and balance each other? I don't know. Wow, that window is getting very bright behind me and my face is getting darker. The last thing is let me just make sure I answered this. What is the purpose of the CBO? Yeah, I answered that. That was pretty good. CBO, the OMB. The OMB is the Office of Management and Budget. And that's so much money they're moving around. It's overwhelming. Okay, last thing is the military budget is considered discretionary spending. Do you agree with that? If so, explain why or why not. If not, explain how you might want to change the military budget. The military they have free range with a lot of money. That is understandably concerning. Discretionary. Use at your own discretion. That's concerning as well. And it's raining and it's so bright through this window. I'm going to turn us for these last minutes. That didn't really make it any better. Okay. I guess you can see where I stand surrounding the military budget. I guess, like, in order to keep military secrets, you have to have a military budget that, like, we can't say, like, oh, we're spending all this money on this project, and this project is working on this, and we're going to put it in a public budget forum for everyone to see and comment on. That means that, I guess, our enemies would know what we were working on. But we are supposed to be a force of peace in the world, so being transparent would probably be a good thing. And the fact that the entire budget is discretionary is concerning. Like, I would understand if 20% of the budget was discretionary and they wanted to do whatever shady things they were doing with it, but the rest of the budget should be clear to the American public what is being spent. Where? I think transparency is part of democracy. But that is not how it's being run right now. So maybe it is not part of democracy. Because we're a prime example of a democracy. And we are not being transparent with our military spending. That is what I have, you guys. That's the video. Oh man, I could just, my neck, feeling it. I hope this video was helpful to you. If you have comments about whatever I said or questions, why don't you post them on YouTube? It'll look like I have some content engagement. Not that that's the goal, but still, that'd be cool. Hopefully I have time to review this in class too, maybe at the end of one of the sessions when students finish teaching. Otherwise, have a wonderful day. I'm obviously not going outside because it's raining, so I gotta go figure out what I'm gonna do now. Bye everyone!